Welcome everyone to our weekly Cyber and Jersey article review. We have a new member joining our team of Cyber and Jersey professionals to share his insights and also to add value to our conversation. Jonathan Fisher. Jonathan, welcome to our weekly Cyber J article review.
Yeah, happy to be here. Looking forward. I definitely enjoyed reviewing this article and looking forward to the discussions today.
Awesome. Paul Robinson, Chris Carter, thanks as usual for, taking the time out to participate in our conversation. This could not be possible without you guys, so I definitely appreciate the time that you guys have actually taken to share in our discussion for today. So, guys, let us have some fun in doing this. As every week, the aim of doing this is for us to be able to add value to the community, to be able to share and to gain insights from each other, so that we can actually take our career to the next level as security professionals within the industry. And as you're actually seeing on screen, but before I actually jump into the article itself, one of the things is that no doubt you will agree with me that as the technology, evolves or continues to advance as we're seeing today, then for sure cyber risks are becoming an increasingly common problem for not just businesses or organizations, but also individuals. When you talk about data breaches and cyber attacks, this is something that is constantly in the headlines, on a regular basis. And it's clear that cyber threats are a serious concern for anyone who uses technology in their business operations or even their day-to-day lives. And in the article that we'll be looking at, we'll definitely be looking at some of the top cyber risks that businesses and organizations face today. But most importantly is that we'll look at the measures that can be taken by individuals and businesses to mitigate or to minimize the impact of these risks. Because the fact is that once you have technology, once you are using these various technological, I mean, advancements within your organization, there are going to be a risk. So it's a matter of being aware of what exists, what can go wrong, and being prepared for these eventualities. And with that said, then the article that we'll be looking at is an article produced by Forbes, in particular Rudy Shoshani, the top 6 cybersecurity risks facing your small businesses. And one of the big notion is that in many circles that I've actually heard is that we are a small business. No need to worry about cyber attacks. Or we are a small business, we don't have the budget to implement controls against these attacks. So guys, before we actually, look at those points, let me hear your perspective on the article itself. And for sure, I would love to start with Jonathan.
Yeah, I think what you just said that, if we look at ourselves as being a small business, I've never thought of it like that, but I think you're 100% right. And as we go through the article, anything that it talks about there is things that we can implement in our family and our lives. As we were talking earlier, I have a small family who, or a family with small children who are starting to getting on the internet, and it's getting to the point that we're having to tell them where you can go for sites, what to look out for. Actually, I think my kids just crashed my wife's computer this weekend, because of they wanted to get on some game, and I'm not sure what went down on that game, but I can't pull anything up. It's literally locked out, so I had to shut it down, make sure it's off my network, until I can take it over to get it looked at by a more seasoned professional that can do it, in a sandbox type of environment, to hopefully make sure that I'm not infecting anything else in my home. So I like that aspect that we don't really have the resources in our own home to be able to make sure that all those cybersecurity controls that you would normally have in an enterprise or in a small business are there. So everything in this article is something that we can apply into our daily lives.
Great. Uh, Chris or Paul?
Paul, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go. I'm going to kind of be funny here. So one of my favorite TV shows is Shark Tank. I don't know if you guys have watched Shark Tank before, but um, Kevin O'Leary, I like him.
Mr.
Some people don't.
Wonderful.
Mr.
Yeah.
Wonderful, I kind of like him. That's up for another
Yeah.
debate for another day. But one of his famous lines that he always says after hearing a pitch is, "How do you make money? How do you make money?" And I think we've overcomplicated cybersecurity for small businesses when we talk about technology as a process or what you need to buy and we can't afford it and the whole thing. But really getting them to understand, how do I make money and how is that at risk from a cyber perspective? And this article was really good to kind of give tactical ways of dealing with it. But as security professionals engaging with a small business, or if we work for a small business in a security perspective, that should be the foundational question of how can our money be impacted or revenue streams impacted by a cyber attack? Because I'm kind of passionate about it, because I've seen small businesses go out of business because of a cyber attack. It's one of the most painful things that you ever see. And how do we make money? Jonathan, I love your example about your family. How do we protect our most precious assets? I'm a father of 4 kids. Some days they're my most precious assets, some days I'm just done with them. But how do we protect our most precious assets as well for small business, and kind of distill it down to that, and then say, okay, how do we address protecting things? So
Yeah, no, I think if you're a small business and I say this with conflicting things going through my head. We're a small business, so they won't worry about us. It's probably not the right mindset. I've worked for many non-for-profit organizations. I've seen their budget. I've seen the vulnerabilities that are just scattered throughout their environment. And the reality on the ground is in a lot of cases, they don't have the resources to tighten up their defenses. So we normally start with things like multi-factor, malware protection and things like that. But I think the point, Richie, is if you're a small business, your revenue will be impacted if you have the mindset or you follow the paradigm that says we're a small business, no one will worry about us, so we don't have to worry about it. In a lot of cases, you have customers. In some cases, the customers are the government. The customers are people with personally identifiable information or information that, if it gets in the bad actor's hand, could wreak havoc. So I think at the very least, small businesses can do is just practice the basics, right? Make sure you have at least multi-factor authentication, encryption where and when available, malware protection, right? Just the basic things, and start from there. But I don't think we should, as small businesses, you should live by the notion that no one's going to worry about us. We should be okay. You should do everything you can to protect, your business, and that's shoring up your cyber defenses.
mhm.
Exactly, and those are very valid points that you guys have actually shared so far. When you think about it, small businesses account for a majority of the businesses when compared to large enterprises. One of the things I always admire about Microsoft as a organization, regardless of what people might think, that these guys know what resilience is. Despite the many attacks, Microsoft stands. So they know how to deal with all of these things. So the likelihood of Microsoft actually going under or being affected, on a large scale, will be greatly minimized based on the resources and your experience. So we recognize that at times we had a conversation, for example, that you compare maybe Android versus Apple or iPad. The most person will say, oh yeah, I have had my environment is far more secure than yours, which is far from the fact. The fact is that the bad guys will always go for what is more lucrative, what is more popular, what people using the most, and recognize that there's also a flip in society today where more persons are actually going um, using the Apple devices. So it is becoming very popular within the environment. So what is happening now is that the bad guys are targeting, and we are seeing happening nowadays, and it's the same thing with the small businesses, that these small businesses are now under severe attack just as much as the large enterprises, which means that as an organization, as more companies coming up, regardless of the size, then you have to be conscious of the fact that the bad guys are there, and wherever they can get their hands on valuable information, regardless of how small the financial return is. The fact is that if they attack many small companies, all of these monies will actually add up in comparison to trying to break into a large company that may take them a lot of resources. So it's very critical that small organizations, I mean, even if they cannot find the staff, but at least have that connection, that relationship with some entity, external entity that is able to support them in this regard as it relates to helping them in this initiative of actually doing in the organization. But very important is the fact that they first need to understand what it is that you're up against, right? So, guys, based on what you actually read in the article, can you, share some insight in terms of what it is that organizations or small businesses are actually dealing with today of cyber risk, so that they need to be aware of these things in order to put the defenses in place? That's the first thing. Yeah.
Sure, I'll,
Any one of you
I'll
guys
go
can actually
first.
jump on this point. It doesn't really.
Yeah, I couldn't
No,
find the mute button.
yeah, I think the biggest thing that businesses are facing with is, I would say, the human factor. When we start looking through this, all six of those is all affected by what we as an employee will do, and not pay attention on clicking stuff. If you can take that human factor out, which you know until chat GPT and all the AI stuff can really start doing my job, and I can just sit back and do nothing all day, we're going to have some type of interaction with the technology. So the biggest thing I think is making sure that we work with the employees when they come in, make sure that any type of cybersecurity awareness training, that it's not just, hey, here's a quick little um, lesson, a course that you can do and get a certificate. Hey, you're good for the next year, right? And this is something I've actually been very interested in lately. I don't know if you all saw the article last week, I believe, how the city of Dallas was, affected by a ransomware attack. It's probably someone clicked on something that they weren't paying attention to, the link. These attackers are getting very more advanced. It's a little bit harder now, especially with AI being able to help them, craft their messages, to really understand, or by automatically being able to detect, oh, that's a phishing, or some type of attack. I'll not click on that. It's getting a little bit harder, so we have to make sure employees, people that we interact with, that they understand better ways of identifying when, if it's a phishing email they're getting, or, if there might be some malware that might be attached into what seems like a legitimate email.
Yeah, I think one of the things that cripples small businesses is fear. When an organization says, "Oh, well, we're too small, no one wants to bother with us," I don't take that for face value. I kind of look at it a little bit deeper and say, no, there's some fear involved, because they know they know if they're running a functional business, they know risk and they know the risk that's involved with that. So as we talk about malware, we talk about insider threat, as we talk about security awareness training and things like that, how do we bring the fear down and just get people comfortable to get educated? Again, physical security, virtual security, really kind of the same thing, and imagine living in constant fear from a physical perspective at environment. It'd be paralyzing. Um, so from a virtual perspective, how do we educate, to be aware and to be cognizant of what's going on, but not live in constant fear that's stemmed in, a lot of bad information that's out there. Make it specific to the business that you have, to just build that cyber culture inside of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Jonathan kind of said it best, because it's funny. You took the words out of my mouth, Jonathan, when you said, if you look at all the six different vectors of attack, right? They all come down to the human. And I think what you just said, Paul, is yes, absolutely. If you're a small business, right? But if you're a small business, I think one of the critical things you should think about is, the type of insider threats that you have. Start with the inside, right? Because that's probably your most targeted vector, which is the human being. If you look at insiders, they're usually categorized in three different buckets. One is the negligent user. So you see like a a link from a Nigerian prince promising you $1 million. You click on it, right? The other one is the compromised user, and then the third is I would say that the malicious, right? So I'm leaving next week. I hate this company. I'm going to download all the IP and I'm going to send it to my Google Drive, right? And I think to your point, Paul, is yes, what we have to do is increase awareness, increase training, education around, right? How can we be compromised, and create a culture of security whereby you have folks within the organization who have a security mindset, right? Very hard to kind of target like the malicious bad actor inside, right? But there could be potentially mitigating controls that you assign there, maybe a bit more monitoring. But I think, you hit the nail on the head, Paul, when you said, security education awareness. How do we get people to understand the implications of their actions or the ramifications of their actions? Clicking on a link, visiting a website, putting in, your intellectual property into chat gpt and asking it to summarize it, things like that. So I think it's, the education piece is a huge piece.
Yeah, and I think that comes with telling stories too. Think of and the name of the company's escaping me right now, but the payroll company. I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. The payroll company that was attacked and people weren't getting paid the whole month of December, which is the worst month ever to not get paid. And really distilling it to that level. When we talk to users, the general consensus, oh, users are stupid. And no, they're not. They're not stupid. They're functioning human beings. These are, you don't belittle someone, in the spirit of cybersecurity, but because they don't get it. They're not zeros and ones. They're not binary. But if you can distill it down to, hey, if you click this link, our doors can shut. Can you afford to be unemployed at this point in your life? Well, no, I absolutely can't afford to have that happen. Okay, so here's why we're taking cyber so seriously, because these attackers, think of the old Looney Tune cartoons that are out there where, you have the burglar that's going after the sweet old lady. SMB is a sweet old lady. These criminals are not going to go after the big bully. And if they do, it's a certain type of criminal. These criminals are lazy. They want to get in, they want to get out, and whatever. So $250,000 to a cyber criminal is, okay, I made $250,000 today, but $250,000 loss to a small business could be catastrophic for them. So how do we get the business to understand the fact that no, not only do they care about you, but you're an easy target for them because they're looking for speed at this point of how they're doing. You know, a large attack on a larger enterprise takes 18, 24 months. 90 days they could be in and out and shut you down. So understand that that's why you're a target in this environment.
Yeah, very valid points there, guys. Now, I've been actually going through the article itself. There are a number of points that he actually discovered. I mean, highlighted in the his article. I mean, walking a tightrope, where he said that attackers are akin to a roaring lion, constantly prowling. As I've mentioned before, I mean, cybersecurity is a growing issue to businesses globally, right? But very importantly is that the statistics surrounding this. I mean, cybercrime went up by 600%, which is quite significant due to the pandemic. So this is a very serious issue that you're actually dealing with. I mean, within the environment that small businesses need to be aware of the statistics, what is actually happening within the environment, so that at least they're in a position to make those informed decisions in terms of putting the necessary plans in place and also to get the resources, whether externally or internally, to help with the various challenges that they have. So one of the critical things is that he identified the cyber security risk facing small businesses. And he actually highlighted, I think, about six of these. But the question, guys, based on the fact that these have been highlighted, is it saying that as a business, as an organization, these are the risks that you will be facing? Or is it just a matter of these are the most common risks?
I think it depends on the vertical, right? So I think what the author laid out here. I think most businesses, if they have presence on the web or they have any kind of server that's beaconing out, or folks are accessing, it's going. You're open to this, right? You could be vulnerable to this if your cyber defenses aren't, if your security posture isn't where it should be to protect your critical assets. So I think right, it's the classical it depends, right? So if you're and finish the sentence. But in most cases, I think organizations are, they're exposed to this. If they have vulnerabilities that haven't been patched or remediated or being addressed, that's a problem. Um, I know in cyber we tend to be doom and gloom. So I'm going to flip the script a little bit, because I think even though the bad guys are getting better, we are seeing laws that are, the starting with the Trump administration and now the Biden administration, there are regulations that are in place that require companies to implement specific security measures, right? So I think that's kind of a shiny, looking at it on the bright side. I think those are things that are happening, and we should be aware of it. We should applaud our lawmakers and our executive branch that we are doing things at the same time as the bad guys are getting better. The good guys are also working hard. So, I just want to highlight that and call that out. That yes, if you're doing business, it's just a part of doing business. But I'm excited, and I am positive. I'm cautiously optimistic that um, based on the regulations that are in place and the increasing capabilities that are coming down the pipe. I think, I don't want to say we're going to be okay, right? But with a certain degree of caution, I'd like to say that yes, things aren't as always bad as we portray them to be.
Well said. Very well said. Very well said.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you there that, I mean, tremendous strides have actually been made in terms of actually implementing and developing resources, tools that can actually help organizations, I mean, businesses, once they reach out for that sort of assistance or help. Now, we are down 4 minutes to the time. So, guys, quickly, you have actually identified all of these. I mean, the ransomware attacks, the percentages, phishing, malware attacks, social engineering, I mean, data theft, incident threats. So, guys, when you think about all of these threats, I mean, risks that have been identified, what are some of those controls or, I mean, things that can actually be implemented to deal with all of these, I mean, risks that an organization could be faced with? Or some of the things that
Yeah,
you might have actually implemented based on your experiences in the past?
yeah. The article touches on it, and Chris, you talked about the laws that have come out. Have a plan. Start with a plan. If you don't have a plan, then you're kind of shooting in the dark, and you're like, "Oh, social engineering. I got to go buy this tool, or I got to go invest in this training materials and things." Just have a plan in place to say, "Okay, this is how we're going to address it." Yeah, you don't have unlimited funds, and yeah, you don't have unlimited time to do this, but if you have a plan in place, then it's something that you can work off of instead of just putting your head in the sand and saying, "Man, I just hope today isn't the day."
That's a good point
Jonathan, go
again.
ahead, Jonathan. I got a lot of thought. I wanted to give
Oh
Jonathan
yeah.
an
Oh,
opportunity
no
there.
worries. Yeah. I mean, I'll go back to informing the employees, informing the human factor of what can happen. I've worked for two small businesses, and both have been very active on like promoting themselves on LinkedIn, on social media. And guess what? That's where some of these threat actors can get information about that company. Next thing you know, all the employees who have registered, hey, I work at this company. They're starting to get emails, trying to do some phishing. It got to the point that we always had to tell new employees, hey, probably in the first week or two, you're going to get an email from the CEO saying that he wants your email or he wants you to go buy a gift card. Don't worry, it's not him. He's not going to reach you to that way. At one company, we started having fun because I mean, it started getting to onto our phones. And so we started playing back with the bad actors. Maybe that's not the best, but if we're gonna be getting attacked, they have our information already. Let's have some fun. Let's start taking pictures of gift cards and asking them which one do they want me to buy. What can we do to help out? Hey, can you give me the money because it's payday. I'm so waiting for that payday. Can you send me that money so I can buy that gift card? Right. So that kind of helped us in that small business pay more attention to those type of attacks because we start having a competition of who can make the best reply back to that threat actors. Again, maybe not always the best way to approach it, but it kept us all our head on the swivel to pay attention to what was going on. And it made us more aware of those little phishing campaigns that someone was trying to do on us.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like a muscle, right? The other day I wrote an article and someone that I don't know sent me something in my inbox saying, hey, you wrote this article and there's some errors in it. Click on this link to see the truth. And I literally twiddled my thumb and I'm like, whoa, so I think, like constant awareness of, okay, you just need to keep reminding that these are how people attack you, or these are things that can happen, right? But like I said earlier, ransomware. I think now I just reviewed a company that they have homomorphic encryption, right? So they literally encrypt the data as you're working in the data, it's being encrypted. So, like I said, the technology is also increasing. That would address the issue around ransomware, but high level, I think you got to have a BCDR plan. I think Jonathan kind of alluded to this. You got to have a BCDR plan. You got to do regular tabletop exercises, even if it's just, hey, let's walk through. Sit. If this happens, who's it? What's your call tree? What's the backup plan? Those are basic things that even if you don't have the budget, you should budget your time to go through that exercise. And there are a lot of resources out there that can help you, right? Go through those exercises. But I think those are basic things. If you can invest in like a business, like an email tool such as Proofpoint or any one of those tools, and then know before those types of things are out there. But again, if they're not, there's a there's a different way to do it based on your budget, right? There's so many different pieces of technologies out there, and if you don't have the budget for it, there's a free or manual way of kind of mimicking what the other technology is that you may not be able to afford is already doing.
Yeah, I mean, great point there. Well, for sure, guys. I mean, if you have no final words, then for sure, very importantly, guys, is the fact that as organizations, as you have mentioned before, have a plan in place, have a playbook. And I always had this additional thing is that do get an OSINT report. That's open source intelligence report. Try to find out how do I stock up, what information is there about my company that could be used against me. And it might be so surprising that you did not know that all of this existed that could have actually destroyed or create a risk to my organization. So, guys, it was indeed an awesome conversation. Really enjoyed it, all the valuable inputs. And I mean, if there are no final words, then, guys, this has brought us to the end of another interesting article review, cybersecurity, and GRC article review. So stay tuned, stay connected for our future communications. So, guys, have a wonderful rest of the day.
Take care.
Thank
Bye bye.
you. Nice to meet you,
Great, guys.
Jonathan.
Okay,
Yep.
thank
Good to
you.
meet you all.
Bye,
Cheers.
guys.
Bye.
Enjoy your day.
Chris Richey, good seeing you again. Take care.
Take care.
Okay, likewise,
Always.
guys. Bye. Take care. Bye, Jonathan. Bye, Omar.
Goodbye.